Welcome back, Sooner Nation, to the Anything OU podcast. Man, does that feel great to say. I want to give you guys a special welcome to season 2. We have a lot of cool videos planned for you guys. But today, we are super excited for football season. And to get you, Sooner Nation, prepared, we're going to do a series of videos where we talk about not only Oklahoma football, but we also bring on other guests to talk about some other teams out there in the nation to really give you an educated idea of what we can expect from the landscape of college football this upcoming year. So really hope you guys enjoyed this video with the one and only Jake Crain. Really got a really good one for you guys today. And hey, as always, enjoy the video. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Anything OU podcast. We have a very recognizable face, Jake Crain. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, recognizable face. I think that can be taken multiple ways, but I'm pretty sure you meant it in a good way. I appreciate that.
It's supposed to be a good way, but a mysterious kind of thing as well.
I'm just messing with you.
No,
Yeah.
so if you don't know Jake, ladies and gentlemen, so he coached at the collegiate level for 9 years. He's the CEO and host of the Crain & Co. on the Daily Wire, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, 2 p.m. Central, and the bane of Brandon Walker's existence.
Yeah, that number one, I appreciate you guys having me on. Now, look, and the thing is, like, I don't dislike Brandon. Like, I've tried to get him to come on the show. I've had buddies that have gone on there. I've had guys that have been in the space, and I don't know. I feel like if you're going to attack people like that, give yourself a chance to come on and let's go one-on-one without like all your friends just bullying a bunch of kids at the lunch table. Like, I mean, you get somebody on their own and you really find out. But, I got a lot of respect for Brandon. He's obviously found his niche, which is hard to do in the sports media world. But, again, sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. It is what it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you is obviously our coaching staff at the University of Oklahoma football has changed dramatically. It's gone from awful to a lot better, in my humble opinion. But give us your quick breakdown for the coaching, for offense and the defensive side of the ball.
Well, obviously starting with Brent, I think he was one of the best hires of the offseason. I think you can see Oklahoma. And again, me and Cole Kublik talked about this on the show. ADs, sometimes I think we do give them too much credit. I don't know if they're going out there trying to just identify a philosophy and like, we need a guy that does this. Most of the time they're going to reach for big names, for splash names. But Brent, to me, is exactly what Oklahoma needs. Again, Oklahoma has tried, the offensive way of being a very offensive heavy team, and that can get you close to the mountaintop, but you have to be more of a complete and balanced team to be able to win the whole thing, which is what Oklahoma wants. You just don't want to get to the door. You want to burst through it and burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid man. But I think what Brent gives you, number one, is toughness. Number two is accountability. Number three is Brent knows that the game is won and lost up front. And he knows that to be able to have a championship team, you have to be balanced on offense, defense, and special teams. And he's just going to bring a we'll hit you in the teeth for 4 quarters attitude to Oklahoma. And that's what you need, especially when you're going to the SEC. It ain't no cakewalk out here. You've got to have guys that are able to physically do it, guys that are hungry, that are hungry enough to do it. And, you look at some of these teams that are high flying offenses, and there's always 2 to 3 games a year where the defense has to win you the game. You got to get some stops to win the game. And Oklahoma struggled with that. I know Grinch was doing a better job and they were bringing guys in, but it wasn't to that level that it's going to be with Venables. Jeff Lebby, to me, doesn't get enough credit for what he did at Ole Miss. I know Lane Kiffin's an offensive guy. We get it. But Jeff Lebby coming back with Dylan Gabriel, a guy they were together in 2019 at UCF. I don't think enough people are talking about that. And I haven't said this yet, and I guess I'll break it on here at the Oklahoma show. I think Oklahoma makes the playoff this year.
Wow.
Awesome.
So one of the quick things that I wanted to ask you about was you bringing up Jeff Lebby. So obviously, I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. Lincoln Riley is one of the smartest offensive minds in the nation. So the scheme and everything is a lot different. So what do you see in the difference between the scheme of Jeff Lebby versus Lincoln Riley?
Well, Lincoln, number one, is an unbelievable communicator. If you watch the way they call plays, I mean, they were able to communicate things on a different level so quickly, and you're still not really able to steal the signals. But, what made Lincoln's offense, really outstanding to me was his play action game out of the gap scheme. The play action off the power, play action off the counter. He did a really good job of mixing that in. He had really good feel as a play caller of when to do it, when to dial it up. His passing game, I wouldn't say the scheme is elite, but it's good enough to take advantage of what he wants to do off play action. What I think you're going to see with Levy more is a little bit more spaced out. I think you're going to see different splits by the wide receivers. I think you may see a few more lighter formations, not as much 12 personnel, one back and two tights, not as much heavy stuff. And you may see the tempo start to pick up a little bit. I think Jeff trusts Dillon Gabriel enough to be able to go ahead and open the whole bag. And I know they lost some guys in the transfer portal, Mario Williams, but they also returned some guys that can play. And I think Oklahoma's done a really good job in the offseason. So the running game's going to be there. I think you're going to see more zone. I think there'll be more zone runs. I think you're going to see more RPOs even than you saw kind of with Lincoln. Because while Lincoln had stuff built in, he was a little bit different with Caleb Williams than he was with Spencer Rattler. Once you saw Caleb come in, the offense kind of evolved because Caleb's able to be more of a dual threat with his legs. They're not worried about him extending plays on the outside. He does that naturally. But with Dillon Gabriel, I think you're going to see a little bit more of a spread out offense. You may see the tempo increase and some more zone runs.
What about because I know that like looking at some of the numbers of Levy's offenses in the past, because of the lighter bit, not running 12 as much, they sometimes struggled in the red zone. Do you think with personnel, just because what we already had here, plus with what they added in the transfer portal, that might change a little bit? Or do you see maybe a little bit of a struggle sometimes because of that kind of spread out? And as the field gets smaller, that tends to be a little bit more of a struggle.
Yeah, well, we always say OCs get paid when you get in the red zone. They don't get paid to move the ball from the 20 to the 20. They get paid to score touchdowns when you get in the red zone. Obviously, outside of explosive plays where you score outside of the red zone. But I think Jeff Lebby coming into that conference for the first time, because it's one thing to watch tape on a guy and you haven't called the game against him. You don't have a really good feel for him. You look what Josh Heupel was able to come into the SEC do last year at Tennessee. While you knew what he did at UCF, you knew what he was going to do until you're out there and you're able to have that feel to be able to call against it, especially in the red zone. I think they'll have more success, one, because of that. But, again, just because you go lighter doesn't mean that you're going softer. You're going to make them, whether it's formation into the boundary, getting them to flip, whether you start going fast in the red zone, whether it's a zone run, there's still ways to utilize and be powerful outside of 10 personnel. So I don't think it'll be as much of a struggle, because I don't think the book's out on Lebby because guys haven't seen him. And again, there's wrinkles they're going to add. There's stuff that you can do. Again, Levy's time with Lane Kiffin's going to be huge as well. You grow from that as a coach. So I wouldn't be shocked if you did see them go a little bit heavier personnel down there, but they really, really utilize Dillon Gabriel's legs. I think you'll see a lot of sprint out on 3rd and goal from the 4, stuff like that. Maybe they get to the 11, a little boot action off it, hit the tight end of the drag, or run the slip with the front side tight end off the boot. So I don't think it'll be as big of a problem. Now, going into year 2 and year 3, if Jeff is still there, you have to continue to make adjustments. But I think you'll see that offense really hit this first year because guys just haven't seen it in person.
Do you think some of the offensive adjustments that you're talking about in year 2, year 3, with some of the offensive staff that we retained, like DeMarco Murray, Bill Bedenbaugh, do you think that kind of assists in that ability? Because they're under multiple different, they were under, some of them were under Heupel even, and then under Lincoln. So does that add, like Cale Gundy, for example, he's been here forever. I mean, he could honestly have been, a lot of people were, without Lebby being hired, we're pushing for him to be the offensive coordinator. So do you think somebody like that really makes a difference on staff?
Well, for sure. Look, continuity and stability is huge, but it's not just for the coaching staff. It's for the kids too. The guys that are still there, they're hearing the same voices. They understand, how it goes. And while Lebby will be the one, obviously Brent oversees it all, but Brent's smart enough to know you hired Jeff Lebby for a reason. But having that continuity, having those guys that have been in that league, guys like DeMarco Murray that have played in that league, it'll do nothing but help, and it continues to help you grow. Because I don't think Jeff is one of those guys that goes in there and he's like, all right, this is what we're doing. It's the only thing we're doing. We're not doing anything else. He's going to listen. He's going to let his coaches coach, and he's going to listen. Now, he's going to be the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes down to what happens on game day and what goes into the game plan finally. But no, having that continuity and being able to grow together, because, again, you grind together, you grow together, and having that stability is huge. We've seen programs that haven't had stability fall off a cliff because it's hard to get everybody swimming in the same direction when everybody that's barking the orders keeps changing. So, yeah, I mean, it's huge, and that's always a feather in a cap.
Before we get back into the video, we really appreciate if you guys go check out our sponsors. If you go to plainsgolfco.com, first link in the description, and enter our code at checkout, Boomer in all caps, you can get 15% off store-wide. We'd really appreciate if you guys go check them out, and let's get back into this video. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about super quickly was, we mentioned, what we're doing in the off season and stuff like that. And without even having played a down yet, other than the spring game, Brent Venables is recruiting very, very, very well. And this whole new staff, everybody is recruiting, from coming back all the way back after everything lost to top 8, now again to top 10. What are your thoughts on Brent Venables recruiting? I mean, it's very impressive for what he's doing and getting kids to buy in.
Yeah. Well, number one, if you watch the way the defense played for him at Clemson, you can understand why guys are gravitating to him in the recruiting process. I mean, that's something that's genuine. Those guys would run through a wall for that man. Because, look, I think Brent knows that if I'm going to ask you to run into another grown man for 4 quarters, then you better trust me and you better think that I love you and care about you more than just how you play. And I think that's what he does. I think he actually has personal relationships with these guys where it's not, I'm here to be your friend. It's, I'm here to be here when you need me. I'm here to try and take you to the next level. I'm here to try and do the things that put you in a position to take care of your family. That's whether helping you finish and get a degree. And if you don't play in the NFL, that's fine. But again, it's being genuine. When I was in it, I used to laugh at all these grown men that are coaches that go into high schools and try and act like somebody they're not, or try and be cool or be hip. Because if anybody can smell a rat, or if anybody can smell somebody that's fake, it's an 18-year-old kid. They see it every day in high school. They know exactly what's going on. So I think Brent's just himself. They know that he cares about them. They know that he knows what he's doing. Just look at the guys he's put in the league. So, yeah, I think you add those things together, plus Oklahoma going to the SEC, and it's Oklahoma. You add up all those superlatives, and you're going to be able to have a lot of success. And I think Brent's just getting started, to be honest.
Yeah, a lot of us are really excited. I mean, the recruiting momentum is real. So we're super excited to see.
Great players want to play with great players, man. Yeah, it'll always be that way.
So let's talk about expectations. Obviously, you made your prediction for Oklahoma to make the college football playoff. So do you have any specific games that are potential hiccups along the way? And then are you predicting a 12-0 season or more 11-1?
Yeah, I got Oklahoma winning the Big 12, going 11-1. The Texas game is always interesting, especially with Sark being the first one for Brent. But you look at the home games. You're playing the guys that were the bullies last year at home. You got to look at the schedule. You got to look at those 3, 4, 5 game stretches without a bye week, and I think it sets up good for Oklahoma. And again, it's amazing. Sometimes I think there's a common misconception that people think, oh, it's a coach's first year. There's going to be struggles. Well, a lot of times coaches come in that first year and the book's not out on them, especially if they haven't been a head coach. So you really don't know. You look at Gus Malzahn at Auburn, comes in 2013, goes straight to the Natty. Now, they blew it against Florida State. I think we can all say that. But there's been multiple instances of guys in their first year coming in and having a big year and then having to live up that standard and try and increase it. But I think the schedule sets up nice. I don't think Baylor and Oklahoma State are going to be what they were last year. I know Oklahoma State returns a quarterback that's really nice, but I don't think they're going to sneak up on people like they did last year. The word's out on Dave Aranda and Baylor. They lost a lot on defense. I don't think they're going to be the same team where they were last year, even though I love the Sharpen kid at quarterback. I always trust the shortstop. But Oklahoma, at the end of the day, to me, I think the schedule sets up well. I think they have the depth. I think they're going to be better on defense, and that's been the key for Oklahoma and Texas. What's been the thing that's held them back? It's they can't tackle anybody. They can't stop anybody when it matters. And now you add that to the equation, I don't see Oklahoma having an unbelievably huge drop-off offensively, and I think they're going to go 11-1 and have a chance to make the playoff.
So who do you think are the potential losses, I guess you could say?
I'd have to look at the schedule. There's a away game I think I had at Iowa State, just because Iowa State always does this to somebody. Ames, I've been up there, clinicked up there. It's a crazy place to play. A lot of people don't know that. I just feel like that's one of those hiccup games that kind of sneaks up on you a little bit. I don't think it's Baylor at home. I don't think it's Oak State at home. I don't think it's Texas. I think it'll be Iowa State.
Yeah, for me, looking at Iowa State, I think they lost 70% of their production last year.
Yeah.
I was more concerned with that game when it was on Thursday night, just because of Thursday night and Ames on Halloween week was terrifying. But now that it's on Saturday, I'm like, not as worried about that. And it's also after our bye week. So that's helpful. I think I'm more worried about K-State, being honest with you, which also is at home, which helps. And then the last game of the year is Texas Tech on the road.
Lubbock's a hard place to play anytime you play it.
There's that. So, like, I think those kind of games. West Virginia, we don't know what they're going to be with JT Daniels. That's on the road too. So there's definite some. It's hard to pick like which game we're going to lose, but it's relatively easy to say we're probably going to lose one of them.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, look. I got K-State going 7-2 in the conference. I mean, I love Deuce Vaughn. I love Kleiman, what he's doing there, what he did at North Dakota State. He's got 3 cycles in now. That's typically when you see teams really start to adopt that identity and the culture that's built. They're going to have a good run game, good play action game. I actually think Adrian Martinez might blossom there a little bit. I think him getting out of Nebraska was good for them. But, again, typically it's the one game you didn't think. It's the one game that doesn't just pop up. You're like, oh, well, it's after a bye week. We'll be fine. We'll be rested up. Those are the ones, man. And I'm telling you, Iowa State, they're kind of like Mississippi State. They're gonna win. They're gonna win a couple that they shouldn't, and they're gonna lose a couple that they shouldn't. And it just, to me, it kind of all sets up because I'm trying to remember who they played directly after Iowa State. I can't think about it off the top of my head. But again, I picked that game for a reason. Just the spidey senses were tingling on that one a little bit.
I think it's Kansas.
Oh, well, shit. Well, I thought you said the bye week was before that.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So one of the last thing that I want to ask you, Jake, is breakout players for the offense defense. Me personally, I think that, we all know what Dylan Gabriel is going to be, but Caden Helms for me is going to be my breakout player for the offense. And then Jeffrey Johnson is going to be a very key and important part of the defense. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on who you thought it would be.
Well, yeah, man, Helms, losing Stogner hurt. Like I like the way that guy played. I mean, he just, he was tough. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, again, and Mario Williams went to USC. It's easy to pick Dylan Gabriel, but man, I think Dylan Gabriel might end up getting invited to New York, man. I think people are sleeping on Dylan, and we can go through the list of the guys on the outside. We know Oklahoma stays with Ferraris and Lambos in the garage. At least they have. You look at the offensive line, I don't think that's going to be a problem this year, especially with what Jeff's going to do with the zone run. It's built to cut back. It gives you a little more fluidity. Say it again.
And Schmitty being back.
And Schmitty being back is huge. The Helms kid, I think, is a good pick. But I'm going to go Dylan Gabriel because I think he is going to have an absolutely breakout year from the quarterback position. Again, I think his completion percentage is going to be really high. Coach Levy's going to put him in a lot of good positions, honestly. Then defensively, there's a couple young guys that I'm interested to watch, but I think somebody may kind of come out of nowhere. But what you'll see with Oklahoma's defense, and if you watch Clemson's defense, Clemson had good players. We know that. They had some elite players. But Venables got every inch out of each one of those guys. A lot of them, whether it was Skalski, I can go down the list of guys that he got the maximum potential. So I think it may be somebody that we're not thinking of. But I think Oklahoma is going to be good on defense as a unit, not just single players. So, when everybody's working in one direction, you understand how to keep contained and you keep stuff in front of you, you run your sticks coverage on 3rd and long and stuff like that. I think it may be somebody that kind of comes out of nowhere, but I'm more interested in watching Oklahoma as an entire unit and watching him maximize the potential of all 11 of those guys in the field. Because that's when you start beating people's ass. It's one thing to win, but it's another thing to morally and spiritually and emotionally and mentally just drive a stake through somebody. And that's what he did at Clemson. I think that's what they're going to do at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think for me, the offensive player of the year, a breakout player of the year at least, is Braden Willis. I think he's clearly one of the strongest tight ends we have in the room. We know what Levy likes to do with tight ends, and he's the oldest. And so, we know for a fact from players on the team, goal for the tight ends is get Braden the ball. And then the name that probably, it's a common pick, but it's a common pick for a reason. I think it's Danny Stutzman.
Yeah.
And just being that kind of linebacker under Brent, We know what he's capable of from his abilities last year, but I'm just really excited to see what he can do.
Oh, yeah, the linebacker play is going to be elite. I mean, those guys at Clemson haven't fall stepped in 4 years. Like, it's ridiculous. But, going back to the tight end, we talked about the red zone earlier, and it's obviously a huge security blanket for quarterbacks, not just in the seam versus cover 2 or the seam in general, but in that red zone where you get that matchup where you can throw the ball up and have them go get a rebound. I think that's where you're going to see kind of a little bit of bully ball from Braden off the line sometimes once he gets up to that second level and say, all right, put it inside shoulder and put it up, and I'm going to go get it.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, so one last thing. I know you're pretty limited on time. So we just talked about breakout player, and I have a feeling I know who you're going to say for your MVP player for the offense, being Dylan Gabriel, mentioning that he'll be in New York, and I hope that you are right because I agree with you. Who is your MVP for the defensive side of the ball?
Let's go Stutzman. I'm going with my boy here again. I'm going to take the guy that's helping run the show, and we've seen what Venables has been able to do with linebackers. You've seen how he's able to get them to not only make plays, but communicate to the defense. Because to me, the MVP isn't just about making the tackle. It's not just about making the pick or deflecting the pass. It's, hey, we got to be in the B gap. Scoot your ass over. Like, it's getting guys lined up. It's getting guys on the same page. It's getting guys to gang tackle, and it's getting guys excited. But it's not just the game. Anybody can get excited about the game. Junior Seau had one of the best quotes of all time. They asked him, he's one of the best practice players ever. They asked him why he went so hard in practice all the time. Because he said, look, they don't pay me for the games. The games are free. They pay me to practice. And I think that's the mentality you're going to see not only out of the linebacker core, but out of that defense. Those guys are going to be excited to go to practice. Those guys are going to be excited to get in the film room and get better because they know what they're hearing is coming from somebody that really, really knows and knows the tricks, knows what to look for, knows about talking about tips. Hey, the back, when his heels are on the quarterback's, toes, they're running inside zone. If they're offset, they're running some sort of swing, something like that. So I think you're going to see a defense that's hungry to learn, that's hungry to act, and they're hungry to win. And I think an MVP to me is the guy that is the leader of that defense. And I know there's multiple guys that can lead on that defense, not just at the linebacker position, but in the back end and up front. You mentioned Jeffrey earlier. So I'd always typically go linebacker there with Brent Venables. And I think you guys got a talented enough one that he's going to be the guy. Because look, linebacker and the Mike is the quarterback of the defense. They line up the same depth, when you look in the shotgun, basically. So kind of is what it is there. Yeah,
100%. Hey, well, Jake, we appreciate your time, man. You're always welcome over here on the podcast.
Dude, thank you guys for having me, man.
Check out his show on the Daily Wire.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, hey, anytime you guys need me, I hope I'm right on my Oklahoma prediction, or y'all may be pissed off at me. I don't know. But, yeah, whenever y'all need me, check us out, man. We're talking.
Hey, we're only pissed off if somebody's giving an ignorant take. As long as you're not ignorant, which you clearly are not, then we're good. Criticism's fair. Criticism's fair. Ignorance is
sure. Look, dissent moves us forward, man. But no, I appreciate it, guys. Y'all do a really good job. And anytime y'all need me, just holler.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good. See y'all.